An EQ, or equalizer, is an effect that lets you adjust the bass, middle, and treble frequencies of your guitar tone. And in this video, I'm going to show you 5 cool ways to use one. Pro tip number 1 is you can use an EQ to design your own overdrive. First thing you got to do is most EQs have some kind of straight volume boost. Turn that all the way up. Then use the EQ to create a boost in the upper mid-range frequencies. In this video, I'm using the Enieqma from GFI. One cool thing about this is that you can create the mid-range boost and then slide it around to find where it sounds the best in your rig. The reason this is a big deal is that, in my opinion, there's really only 2 levels of distortion that you ever need. The first level is up to the amount of distortion that AC/DC would use, and the second level is the amount of distortion Metallica would use. If you can get the first one somehow, then an EQ can transform it into the second one. The key point here is that you have to run the EQ into the dirt. So if you're using pedals to get your core level 1 distortion sound, like if you're using the Barbershop from Fairfield, this would be a good candidate, or the Boss Blues Driver, then you have to run your EQ pedal before those pedals. In my case, I'm using an amp, except that my amp is the Strymon Iridium. I have this set so that with no pedals and nothing else, it's giving me an AC/DC-ish amount of distortion. This is what that sounds like. Okay, now I'm going to take the exact guitar sound you just heard and turn the Enieqma on. You can also use the volume on an EQ to get the cleanest possible volume boost, where you're getting louder but nothing else is changing. The way to do that is to just turn up the volume and then don't touch any of the other frequencies. This kind of thing is useful if you're playing live and you have a solo and you want to get louder, but you don't really want your sound to change. But there's a subtlety here, which is unless your amp has 0 breakup, it's not really going to be a perfectly clean boost unless you put it in your amp's effects loop. Even if you're just turning the volume up in an EQ pedal, if you run that into the front of your amp, it'll just end up being a less lethal version of Pro Tip number 1. Here's an example. This is my starting tone in this case with no other effects. If I run the Enieqma just as a pure volume boost into that amp, this is what happens. It didn't really make it louder, it just added distortion. In my opinion, it kind of ruined it, actually. But if I take the Enieqma and I put it in that amp's effects loop, this is what happens. This time, it was just louder with no other bullshit. For pro tip number 3, you can use an EQ to design your own lo-fi guitar effect. The fancy name for this is a bandpass filter. And basically what it means is we're going to eliminate all the frequencies except for a tiny little sliver of them. On the Enieqma, the easy way to do this is to bring in a high-pass filter and a low-pass filter and then move them both to the middle or the upper middle or somewhere so that all that's left is a tiny little assortment of frequencies in the middle. If you do that, you can transform a normal guitar tone like this into this. And as a finishing touch, a lot of lo-fi guitar sounds also benefit from some vibrato. That's me using the Mobius. Here's a better example. For pro tip number 4, you can use EQ to fix some noise issues. For this example, I set up a very noisy signal chain and then I just recorded the noise without me playing at all. Now, if you use a plug-in EQ, sometimes they'll have a feature called Analyzer or Visualizer, and that'll show you the frequency content of your signal. And if you're lucky, the noise will just be clustered in a few obvious places. And then all you have to do is create some EQ notches and pull them down until it sounds like the noise is getting better. By the way, it's not super hard to find plug-in EQs that can do this. Right now, I'm just using the one in GarageBand. You could do it on the Enieqma too, though. You can create the notches and then just move them around and find the noisy spots by ear. Anyway, if you spend some time working on this and you sort of get good at being surgical, you can make the noise better without carving up too much of your guitar tone. Here's me playing with that noisy signal chain, and I'm going to turn the EQ on and off as I go. Pro tip number 5, we're going to talk about expression pedals. If you can just set up a single notch EQ and then move the notch with an expression pedal, it will create a wah-wah effect. In this example, I'm using the Long Life from Fairfield instead of the Enieqma. The Long Life is an EQ pedal that's not as tweakable or as versatile as the Enieqma, but it just has its own vibe, and I love it. I actually have a whole video dedicated to it on my channel if you're curious. Anyway, here's me using an expression pedal. I don't know why it's hard for me to say that. Here's me using an expression pedal with the Long Life to turn it into a wah-wah. Okay, but if you've seen my videos before, you know, anytime I talk about an expression pedal, it's just because I really want to talk about the side step. This is a pedal that does what expression pedals do automatically, so you don't have to use your foot to control it. And it can move randomly. And you can set it to move at speeds your foot could never do. I also have a video dedicated to this on my channel if you're curious. Anyway, what you're about to hear is me controlling the Long Life with the side step moving in a sawtooth wave shape. That's one thing, but if you time your playing to that and then you add some nice reverb, it becomes something really cool.